Anne is here, everybody. Cheers. Come say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
This is my mom. This is Anne. All right. So a couple of things that we're going to do. I'm going to interview you / we're going to chat this out. My mom came to the retreat that we did.
I did. That was a great time.
We just had a conversation, right?
Yes.
And so I shared a little bit with you guys about my mom and just talking about how much I admired you.
Okay.
Like as a mom with 3 crazy daughters.
They were 3 crazy. You were 3 crazy daughters.
We were nuts.
Nuts.
How did you survive?
Well, first of all, I don't think you were nuts. I think you had a lot going on. There was a little brokenness. There was a lot of intelligence for all 3 of you. And I think you were all critical thinkers and very independent, and you had your ways of doing things. You were all outside the box. None of you were in between, like the stay in the lines kind of gals, which makes for great adults, but really tough for teen years.
Yeah, we were tough. You were a single mom.
I was a single mom. Didn't start out that way, but
no, you definitely
that's
didn't.
what happens.
No,
sometimes.
So I shared a little bit about my relationship with money and me, with my stepdad, with your ex-husband, and how we had it all. And then we went from having it all to you had to walk away from everything to start over.
Backwards Cinderella.
It was Backwards Cinderella. That's a book.
Cinderella. That's a book.
You should write that book.
I should write that book.
That would be a good
Backwards Cinderella. It was.
So why don't you share a little bit about Backwards Cinderella?
Backwards Cinderella. Before married, before I ever had children or had kids or anything, I never really thought about being married a lot. It wasn't like, some girls way back then in the 70s would write their names on notebooks with last names. There was a thing called Hope Chest, where you had a chest where you kept all of the things that you wanted for your wedding. I didn't think about those things. When I thought about future, I thought about a lot of things, but that really wasn't what I was thinking of. I did know that one day I wanted to be a mom. I always worked with kids, loved kids. Found out I didn't love teens as much as I loved the early years. So anyway, did end up, meeting who I thought was my soulmate. Turns out, fast forward, married for 12 years, had a lot of issues with his own issues, mental health, addiction, all that good stuff. I wasn't a stranger to it because went through it as a kid with my dad. Just didn't see it coming because it wasn't who I found, Mm-hmm. But when life changes, you have to change. And sometimes with adversity comes change. And sometimes that change comes whether you want it to or not. And so I think that the most difficult thing was trying to find a way to keep you all kind of sheltered from what was happening because it was pretty intense. I think I was able to do that sometimes, but sometimes when it's a crisis situation, you just got to make a move. So it was exactly what I did. I left everything except the 3 of you, and it was nighttime, move, and out we went. And I'm probably one of many people who made that kind of a change. As you know, I was blessed. I wasn't a typical single mom. Being Italian is helpful because I have a big Italian family. And my parents, God rest their souls, they were the people who loved you 3 as much as I did. So it's nice to have that. So I was blessed to have that. But, with all of those things that happened for me that probably never would have happened, never would have went into leadership. I was a teacher. I was happy being a teacher. Not that teacher's not leadership, but, things started to change and realized that was better for me. Am I allowed to have a bathroom break or is that not allowed?
Yeah, you can have a bathroom break.
I'm going to be back.
First of all, here's the thing. How many of you can just relate to something she just said, right? When you think about mental health and addiction, this is a lot of conversation that I wanted to have with my mother in front of you guys because I can tell you a couple of things. I can tell you, one, it's not talked about enough. And watching my mom go through a divorce, going through raising 3 daughters on her own, all of us having mental health issues, and then addiction, and my stepdad having the addiction, and the family of him being not supportive, and her having to still show up every single day to work and still show up as a mom, and still, even if, right? So that even if conversation that we were talking about at the very beginning of the summit on day 1. And when I think about even if, I think my mother, literally, it was just an even if for her. Like, even if he steals my car, like, I'll just tell you, my stepdad did not want her to literally be successful or to have a happy life when she left him, and literally stole her vehicle from our house so she would have no car to take us to school and to get to work. I mean, this woman has been through hell and back, and she is a leader. And here's what I want you to know. Like, she'll joke around. She's like, "Oh, no, did it?" She's like younger than me when it comes to her energy. Let's just be clear. But I have been telling her for so long, like, I want you to start your own business, because the experiences you've had and what you've been through and navigating through two daughters with addiction, an ex-husband with addiction. By the way, both of my sisters are sober, clean, married, with families, healthy, jobs, successful, all the things, right? So not only did my mom go through it, she grew through it, and she took us with her. Like, we went up with her. She has three successful daughters. She has three, I mean, I'm her favorite. Let's just be real. Don't tell Erica I said that. I'm her favorite, right? Madeline is a little mini version of my mother. But I tell her all the time, I'm like, it's time for you to start your podcast. It's time for you to write that book. It's time for you to do these things. And since bringing her to my retreat, my mom is now in a place where she is inspired to take action and start the business. I mean, she's still an administrator. She's a vice principal. She was a principal. Now she's a vice principal. We'll talk a little bit about that. But she is going to start a podcast. And my mom is 64 years old. So if you're in your head and you're like, I can't, I'm too old, or I'm too young, or I can't do it, or it won't happen, or it wouldn't help, or but it is, like, all those things. My mother is 64 years old. We are working on her brand. We are working on her podcast. We are working on those things. All right, so let's talk about when you think back to when you were struggling with, just all three of us, with mental health, right?
Yes.
Like, you would just, the poor thing, you would just want to have a happy day.
Yeah. Happy days. But you know what? Here's what happens. First of all, whether it's mental illness or not, raising teenagers is difficult. It's hard to parent. It was really difficult to parent teenagers anyway. And it's difficult to be a teenager. I see that even now, when I see kids. I don't envy parents who are going through it, because teens now are exposed to a lot more with social media. They judge themselves based on what they see. They're exposed to way too much, but it's the blessing and the curse of social media. And you see so much anxiety and struggles, and kids comparing themselves to others, and that's the part that really breaks my heart. The better news in raising the three of you at that time is, I think it was a latter end where I think was MySpace, which kind of was short-lived. So I didn't have to deal with some of those things. But I can speak for myself. As far as being a mom, I saw you girls with a hole in your heart like the shape of your dad's, and it wasn't something that I could fix. And I think that's the hardest thing. It's like, I wanted to fix it. I knew I couldn't. I remember thinking, because kids were always the most important thing to me. I was teaching and working with kids from a very young age, actually. And, I always wanted that one day when I was a mom, that it was going to be where you were going to have these lives that were wonderful and amazing and safe and unbroken. You think all those things when you go in. So I think the hardest thing for me was to accept that what was happening in our household, based on, especially with Chris being your stepdad, with all of those struggles. And again, those are his, not mine, but, to help kids through it. And when I hear people speaking now about mental health or mental illness, and, some people will poo-poo it, and some people will use it as reasons to make excuses for behaviors. And I think my hope is that the world takes it more seriously and looks at what is happening, because I can just speak for myself as far as working in schools for as many years as I have. And we are seeing struggles sooner, longer, bigger, but also remembering that some of these parents are struggling, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thankful that I wasn't struggling, because I don't know if I was somebody who struggled with mental illness, or I was having my own struggles, how could I possibly walk anyone else through it, or be able to even have anything to offer my kids? Because if you're just hanging on by a thread and you're just trying to survive every day, that makes not for the best parenting. So I'm fortunate I had a support system. God sent many angels. And for me, I always say, it's my faith. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And if that's not what your faith is, believe in something, whether it be someone that you can count on, believe in yourself, and have faith that you'll get through things. And don't be afraid to say to somebody, I'm not doing okay today. It's okay to say, I'm not doing okay. God sent many angels. I have, forever friends from during that time. But with all of it, I wouldn't change a thing.
Sure, not one thing.
And I know that's terrible because you know what? Here's the thing. Everything leads us to where we are at this very moment.
Yeah.
I would not have become a school administrator if I did not get divorced because there was no reason for me to reach further.
Yeah.
Right? There was no
Wow.
reason for me to reach further because I was content. It was working, That's what I said. When things change, you do have to change. I had someone the other day, ask me a question about that because she's struggling. It's somebody that I'm, through my work. She said, how did you not fall apart in front of your kids? And I said, I scheduled my cry time, like it would be like after everyone was in bed, I'm going to cry from 10:30 to 11 and I'm going to feel sorry for myself because it's not fair. It's not fair. I got married. I fell in love. I worked just as hard for the house. I just left things my whole life. I had to walk away from everything I worked for. And I had to take my kids out of the house of their dad. And so, I kind of had those feel sorry for me, not fair moments because you got to have those to get through them. And I would schedule like seriously 10:30, I'm going to go upstairs and I'm going to make myself, I'm going to think about it. I'm going to do whatever I need to do. And it's interesting because I kept it on the schedule until eventually I didn't need it anymore. And I remember thinking, wait, I don't need this anymore, But don't be afraid to say, I'm going to give myself time to grieve. It didn't automatically go away. There was lots of times during years, where triggers or some things would come up and you have the what ifs or wish those last for a minute. But the reason I say wouldn't change anything is because the person I am, people say, how come you're so strong? Again, God carried me through it. I have to give credit where credit is due. But at the same time, I'm not the same person. I evolved. What doesn't break you changes you. People say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I'm not crazy about that. But what doesn't break you will change you. So it might not make you stronger right away, but when that change starts to come, you have to embrace the change and know that that's God. He's working on you. He's got something he sees way in front of us. He saw for me what I didn't even know was in front of me. I think of the friendships I've made over these years that would not have been friendships had I been married in the past 20 something years. The educational opportunities I've had, business opportunities I've had, like with education consulting, just kind of found me. It found me when there were families struggling, trying to find a way. And what I've learned is that I enjoy working and helping people navigate through what's not working, like solving puzzles. And before that, I wouldn't even have known how to do that.
Yeah.
Baptism through fire kind of thing. So I have no regrets.
You heard that. No regrets. I'm perfect. You just said it. What she said is Marina is perfect.
I do have to say, one of the things that I say, and my friends or people who know my girls can confirm this, but I say, I don't know if it's because I'm their mom, young people who everyone has gifts. They just have that something that just stands out a little further. And I do believe that comes from adversity. If you don't have trials in your life or adversity or pushbacks, you can't practice strength. You can't practice getting back up if you never fall down. So I feel like there's a generation of parents, and I love them all because I help a lot of moms. I feel like I'm their mom. I help a lot of moms through some tough times with their own kids. A lot of things I'll hear moms say is, I don't want her to be upset with me. And I'll say to her, well, she's 9. And if she's happy with everything you're doing, you're probably doing it wrong. So it's okay if she's upset with you. One of the things I've seen, this is probably about 10 years ago or 15, when, we first started hearing that term helicopter moms. Helicopter moms, as far as if a child is going to fall, they want to catch them before they fall. They don't want them to experience bad things. They don't want them to feel bad things. They don't want them to lose in a game. So there was this interference about, with helicopter moms. And the problem with that is, so now you're dealing with generations of people, and this is just my opinion for whatever it's worth, who don't know how to navigate. They don't have the coping skills they need to navigate through the simplest things of life. One of the things, I think I may have shared this with you, the first time I heard, it was probably a year ago, I heard somebody, or maybe it was on Facebook, where somebody said, I'm so proud of myself, I'm adulting. And I thought, excuse my language, what in the hell did she just say? You're adulting. Well, I sure hope so. You're 34 years old. And I don't know if she wanted to be celebrated that she was adulting, but it made me think, I get why it's such a big deal. We have to applaud because these are the whole generation of people who
Need to be clapped.
need to be clapped, or they get, it's the participation trophy. And I think the worst thing that you could do to your kids, the worst thing you can do at a school, the worst thing you can do if you're anywhere around anyone's children is to tell them they're amazing at something when they're not. They know you're lying to them,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So be sincere. And you know what? We're there to support somebody when they fall, not to stop them from falling. So I feel fortunate, in my position now, you all might know I'm a school administrator in a pre-K through 8th grade school, but I've been in schools for a long time, a teacher, assistant principal. I stepped out during the COVID years. I had this really great family that I had met through one of the schools in Boca, and he's a physician and had a daughter with a health issue, wanted his 4 students homeschooled. So it was the first time I had designed a whole homeschooling program for a family. I was excited about it. But even in doing that, like I said, I've been fortunate to have been over 40 something years working with students and with their parents, which at one point some were my students. So that's how old I am. But, with that, I think God has gifted me, even with this position now that I'm in, because I will straightforwardly and candidly say to a parent who say to me, I don't want them to be upset with me. Listen, if you're not pissing your kids off when they're a certain age, you're not doing it right. They can't possibly understand what you already know. And I think that's the thing too. I was reading some research, and I'm sure some of you had, because anxiety is thrown all over the place. Now, some anxiety is real anxiety. Some anxiety, I think people say, I'm anxious, I have anxiety. You don't, if it's not a diagnosis from a doctor, then don't call it your anxiety. You might just be trying to work through something. Maybe you're missing some of those coping skills. Maybe you got participation trophies.
Somebody give me too many damn trophies.
Maybe you sang a song and your family clapped and told you were amazing, and nobody was brave enough to say, we love you, but this isn't your gift. Let's help you find another one, right? Maybe it's that. But I think what's happening is when you have children, just child growth and development, and some of you probably have more experience, or knowledge. I'm not a psychologist, but I've dealt with lots of students in school-based teams over the years. Children can become anxious because you're giving them too many choices.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, because a small child, they might think they can, but they're probably thinking, wait a minute, isn't she supposed to figure this out? Or isn't dad supposed to figure this out for me? Why am I being told that I can make a decision about A, B, and C? Here's your choices, right? You can take a bath now, or you can take a bath in 5 minutes. You're taking a bath. There you go, right?
Yeah.
And it's amazing because I feel this is just my own stuff, because kids are given so many choices. And social media, because some parents are allowing them to be exposed to things. Some are just sneaking, because that's what kids do.
Yeah.
But they have so many things in their heads, on their hearts, and in their spirits. So the best thing parents can do is say no. If you want to protect them, stand up for them, stand in front of them, and make the tough decisions. A lot of people are afraid to do the hard things. The hard things, the tough things, are the things that matter. Those are the things that bring results.
They're schooling me right now.
It's a true story.
I know. Well, Madeline has a bath time, but we used to do that a lot with her. We did a lot with Anaya, and that was that gave me less anxiety too. It was just like, nope, this is what we do at this time, and this is why we do it at this time, and this is not even why. We don't even tell them why.
Yeah.
I love that.
Something happened, and I know you can probably see it out, in public too, in restaurants and everywhere you go, little people whose little brains are not ready to make a million decisions. It's important to start teach them how to make decisions and that theirs matter, but not to the level. I mean, there's something to be said about not yet, right? You can say yes, no, or not yet, because as a parent, it is up to you to decide the not yet. Right? But not to feel like they are not the same as you. They're not the same as us. They will get there one day.
Yeah.
So some of that, because I'm your mom and I said so, is not the worst thing for them to hear.
I feel like we've lost because I'm your mom and I said so.
Well, it's showing up everywhere. I think.
Well,
It's
I bet I
showing up.
guarantee you're seeing a lot of it in
It's showing
school.
it up everywhere. It's showing up outside of schools. It's showing up in families. And then here's the thing, when they're younger and then they get older, and then what? Our job as parents is to prepare you for life, prepare you for when we're not here.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think I said one time, it might have been to Erica when I said something when she was having a hard time. And it was basically this: I love you. I'm your mom, but the world doesn't care. So let's cry together for 15 minutes. And now I'm going to help you know how to get past that. So the best gift I believe that anyone can give to their children is the gift of knowing that you've got this. Don't look at them. Well, what do you want to do? Then they're probably thinking, what the hell? How am I supposed to know? She doesn't know
They're
what to do.
confused. They're
Right?
like, wait, if she doesn't know, how am I going to know?
She's the taller one
Well,
in
that
the
makes
house,
sense.
right? Yeah. Too many choices. And a lot of kids can't handle all those choices. And most kids, they need to know what's going to happen consistently. What's going to happen next? You go in front of it for them, but don't do it for them. Don't praise them when they don't deserve praise, because then you're just lying to them. They don't like that. And they're not going to feel valued. They're going to feel like you're lying to them, right?
Yeah.
Tell them that, hey, everybody's not good at everything.
Yeah.
No, if somebody were to say to me, oh, you're an amazing cook, I know they're lying to me. I'm not even
they're
interested
lying.
in it. I don't care
No,
about it.
no.
I could care less about it. So I think it's really helping children develop their gifts. And when we're talking about how, self-esteem or self-worth, it can't come from fake praise. It can't come from a participation trophy.
No.
That's not going to come. Real competition in our family,
Oh, yeah.
we're all about competition. And it doesn't matter how old you are. You could be 5, right? I taught Avery, my beautiful granddaughter, who's high functioning, right? And she's 6, and I taught her how to play cards, and she was winning, really winning. And then she lost one. She said, I don't like to lose. I go, it feels bad, doesn't it? She goes, yeah, I want to win. I said, well, then you got to try harder next time. But
Yes.
Here's the thing. If we let them win, are you teaching them what it feels like to lose? Let's get past that. And you can't win all the time,
Yeah. Even business wise, like I think about for those of you that are in network marketing and have teams, or for you that maybe had a mentor that is literally celebrating you for the littlest thing, and then you're not pushing yourself to take risks for the bigger thing, and you don't know how to pivot out of a situation that makes you feel bad because you're kind of making excuses for it or justifying it to, you know what I mean? Like, it's the same kind of thing. We do it with our kids, we do it in our business, we do it ourselves. Like, sorry, my brain just went
Well, I
somewhere
think
else
that
with
there's,
that.
you know what, and generationally, like things will change. And I think you'll say to me, like, oh, how did you do it? You just kind of do it, because the alternative was not do it. And what would that mean? And again, I was raised by Graham, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was blessed to have grandmothers in my life well into my adulthood. I was very close to my grandmothers. And, with my nanny, like, love to all the women now, including my own generation and everyone after me, but none of us rocked it like the generation before me. And that was like my grandmothers. Those women were superheroes. There will never be other women like them because they were facing different times, They were facing different prejudices and discrepancies and resources. And I mean, they were coming out of a generation where 10, 20 years before that, women weren't even voting. So they had, when people talk about now the struggles and, the being oppressed, I almost laugh. I'm like, first of all, as a woman, if you're oppressed, you did it to yourself. That's just my opinion. Does it mean it's not harder for some? Absolutely. So you just have to kick that door harder. But the women, the generation, all races, all creeds, all religions, all countries, the women that were before my generation, those are the women that I say, how in the hell did you do it? Right? So anybody whining now about, oh, I adulted today. Big deal. Adult again tomorrow. Here's when I'm going to be impressed is when you do it and you don't say you adulted today.
Oh, you mean you just show up because you're supposed to just show
Yeah.
up? Oh.
We don't all have to know you adulted today.
Okay, so this is where I will say, I remember when I first started sharing my story and stuff on social media, and my mom, old school Italians, like, they're like, we don't tell people where we go, what we do, how we do it. Like, we don't do those things. So how uncomfortable was it for you when I started sharing?
Well, I think it wasn't as comfortable for me as I just didn't want something to come back and backfire to you because even though you were comfortable sharing, because it was important, it wasn't For me, it was
Yeah.
you needed. It wasn't my place to say to you, it's not okay. Because if you felt that was your time, that you had to share that in
Yeah.
any way you did, whether it be privately or publicly, that belonged to you, not to me. What I was concerned about is the world is not a kind place.
No.
And while some people will hear you and feel you and see you, some people will put that in their back pocket to try to come at you later.
Yeah.
So that was why I was concerned. And particularly, I think one of the people who was encouraging me to do it, I didn't trust that person as far as I would have been able to throw that person. So
Right.
I think that's what it is. But then the thing was too, well, once you step in it, you still have to be true to yourself. But being true to yourself doesn't mean that people have to react the way you want them to either.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
So when you put yourself out there, you don't get to say, "Oh, I put myself out there and he said or she said," because you put yourself out there. So
Yeah.
it's if you're willing to do that, you have to accept whatever the responses or reactions are, good or bad.
Yeah. So I know we have some moms that are watching this that are trying to build a business, trying to be a good mom.
Yep.
They have jobs while they're building their side gigs or their
Yes.
blogs or whatever. What would be some advice you would give them as far as how to do it? I don't believe there's a balance. I don't know. For me, I feel like balance is a bullshit word, but what would you say can help them kind of embrace the chaos?
Well, I
Basically?
think the first thing I would say, and this is what I say to any moms that I work with or working, is number one, give yourself a break, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just give yourself a break because you're going to get it wrong 20% of the time, maybe 50% of the time. Every day's a new day. Every moment's a new moment. Don't hang on to, just like you can't stay and celebrate the wonderful for too long, right? Don't stay in the ick for too long. Just move along. And I think the thing is, too, is have real conversations with your kids. I think for me, and part of it was probably that Italian thing of I'm going to go ahead and take care of things. I think I could have had more conversations with you girls like, well, here's the why. Do you know what I mean? Here's the why. Not too much, but I think I could have a little bit more than I did at times. As you got older, it got different. But, I think when you're trying to do so many things at one time, something's going to fall apart. So you said balance. Balance is not an end product, right?
Mm.
Balance is a process. So to me, balance is, you might go a week without doing laundry and a week you do the laundry. You might have a week where you're not able to spend time with your family, but the next week you are. So balance is a goal, right? And so it's something I think that we all strive for. It gets easier when your life gets easier,
Yeah.
For me, it's just me,
Yeah.
so it's different. But you all moms, working moms, especially working moms who are building a side business, whether you have the support of a spouse or not, or whether you have the support of family members or not, I think it's just you each day saying, how bad do you want it?
Mm.
Because if you want it bad enough, you're going to make it happen. You're not going to have perfect. There's still those days that, how many of you ever have the kids that don't want to go to school or won't get out of the car, right? Like your sister.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So school administrator had to be on, in my office at a certain time on Palm Beach on the island on the bridge and had to drop off my youngest who was, struggling like forever. I think this was her 6th or 7th grade year, must have been, whatever it was. And it would be this ridiculous toddler behavior nonsense of, I'm not going to go. I don't want to go. I basically was the mom who put the uniform in the car, the kid with the pajamas in the car. I'm driving. You're not going to affect my job. It's not going to be please. It's going to be get in, and I'm going to roll you out in the parking lot. And hopefully by then you'll be dressed. Otherwise, your friends will see your pajamas and your mom throw your clothes out the door. So this is a generation of, oh, that might hurt their feelings.
Oh,
I don't
my
care.
God.
I don't care. Because her feelings was not as important as whether or not I showed up for work. I was the income, right?
Yeah.
So we can talk about your feelings later. If you're sad about something, work it out with your uniform on in school with the rest of the class, and we'll figure it out later.
Didn't you drop her off with no shoes or socks? What was the sock thing?
Yeah, so she had sensory issues, and I know sensory issues are real. I do. And I wish I invented the seamless socks, but I didn't. So back in the day,
I
the
know.
socks, the little line, and socks would be on, socks would be off, socks would be on, socks would be off. I'm like, at some point, so I turned them inside out, which worked, right?
Yes.
Well, we're inside. So I was reasonable, like, okay, let's try this, let's try that,
Yeah.
But I think parents are afraid to do the hard things.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy. You're dropping your kid off. Then you go to work, and I learned to compartmentalize because I could not take whatever just happened there with me, because then I would be affecting
Say that again.
my job.
Say that again.
I was there to serve other students.
Yeah.
I couldn't let what happened to me in the morning. So I learned to compartmentalize. So maybe you have an argument with your husbands, or you didn't feel good, or your kids, or a teen, or you got a bad phone call about a family member. You have to, as hard as it is, I promise you, once you learn to put it in a certain place, doesn't mean hide your feelings, stuff your feelings, don't deal with your feelings. Doesn't mean you don't feel, because you do, but you still have the decision of when are you going to deal with it. Everything doesn't have to happen the moment you hear about it, or the moment, so I know that helped me with balance,
Yeah.
because it allowed me to be successful at my job, and then also, to be able to serve those students, and then to be able to come home and to be a mom and have that conversation, like,
Yeah.
whatever's going on with you, I'm never going to stop putting you in the car with or without pajamas, with a uniform, because nothing you do is going to make me late for what I need to do. I'm not going to allow you to do that. And I think that's where people have a hard time. And again, with your sister, her struggles were, her onset was 14, which is typical for a lot of gals and people who, mostly girls, who struggle with mental health. And 14 is usually an onset. It's the hormonal times. The double whammy is when you have the brokenness of, your family's broken. Somebody died, somebody left, somebody's not together, somebody's sick, somebody's twisted, whatever. Somebody's still in the house actively, drinking, or actively using, or still not doing good. So that's part of it. But there's also, some people don't believe this, but there's also a wiring. I mean, there's genetic components,
Yes.
for that as well. So I really wish it wasn't, I think it's getting less taboo talking about mental health.
Yeah.
But I think the problem too is, and this is where, I don't want to get political, but when you sit here and you watch leaders, and we're supposed to be one of the best, countries that, the free world and all this. And I don't want to offend anyone. So, but when we see of these things, these terrible things that happen at schools, right, where
Yeah.
people are doing things in schools, walking in and hurting kids and people, and we're looking at, homelessness and people on the streets and rampant, and we're watching, zombies because of fentanyl, and we're watching the prisons pack in. I don't understand, why we're not looking at what is the source here. I just feel that if our country, or any country, spent more money on preventative and proactively helping every single person struggling with mental health, and everyone should have those resources. And as a taxpayer, I would do it all day long for everyone else's family and everyone else. Then I don't think we'd be talking about the outcome of all these other things. And again, I'm a nobody. I'm just a mom of daughters who struggle with mental health. I'm also, an educator who has seen it. As educators, you'll see her teachers, any who will say, we saw that coming, or we knew that, or we tried to intervene, or we begged the parents, or we asked them for help. And so, I'm just waiting to see when everyone is going to connect the dots every time we hear of something and say, wow, here we go again as a country, not taking care of and paying attention to the importance of mental health for all of our citizens and our families. So
I agree,
Yeah.
1 bajillion%.
yeah. So for that being said, I was still more fortunate to have the resources for, behavioral health. And there's a lot of things that were considered, like I always had great health insurance for myself and my kids. But I will tell you that back in '07, many things were considered behavioral and not medical. So that was out of pocket for me. And it was thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And you're missing a couple zeros.
Yeah. So thankfully, there's a lot of things. Addiction's now considered a medical. So your health insurance will cover some treatment centers. You got to work with that. I do know, but that was not an option back then for when I was trying to help your sister through something. So it's still moving way too slow for me, though.
Agreed.
Way too slow for me. And I remember sitting in a hospital because your sister was there and sitting with these other women. And I'm saying women, and no disrespect to men, because I'm sure there's a lot of dads out there, suffering with their kids and stuff. That just wasn't my story, but I found myself more often with women in those waiting rooms in hospitals. It was usually moms on the other side of those kids, and I remember feeling like blessed, but guilty that I did have the resources for what came after those hospital visits, and other people that were sitting next to me did not have that. And I just think it should be something that everybody has.
You're making me emotional.
Sorry.
That's my mom, you guys. You wonder why I'm so cool. Because of her. Here, you know what this is called?
What?
This is the rich bitch drink.
There's a rich bitch drink?
Because it's Starbucks. And so if you think of it
Uh-huh.
as being a rich bitch drink, then you get rich.
Well,
They're so expensive.
I always think of Papa, because Papa would be like, because he was a Dunkin' Donuts guy,
Mm-hmm.
and he would be like, with the two of us,
Yeah.
it would be something like, what in the hell are you two doing buying those overpriced coffee drinks?
Because we're rich, bitch. That's
'Cause
why.
it tastes good.
Yeah. It tastes yummy. How can we as a mom not feel guilty for doing for me and my business when our brain tricks us into guilt?
Guilt is a wasted emotion.
Mm.
And if you have, share my faith, that's not a God sent thing. God isn't sending us the feeling of being guilty. So guilt is a wasted emotion. Move on.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what I found. Believe me, I was born an Italian Catholic female. Guilt was a prerequisite. I had to learn how to let go of that, because I was trained to feel guilty about just about everything as an Italian Catholic female, but I don't really feel guilty about kind of anything anymore. So I don't know.
No, she's so fun to be
Mhm.
around. There is like I just don't give a
Yeah,
what.
it's an oops.
I love it though.
It's an oops.
It's so much fun. Did you ever think that we'd be this close?
Yeah.
After all the
I did.
drama I put you through?
Well, you know what it was too, is because we're so different.
I know.
Like there's, in some ways people think we're alike, but we are so different.
Yeah.
Like opposite ends of couldn't be more further from. And I think people, it's hard for me. And I say this, I think I've said this to your sisters too. I think I was a better mom when you were younger, and then learned how to reinvent and reestablish relationships. We always were together in relationships, but I think it got better again as we got older. I think why the teen years were so difficult for me is I wasn't a typical teen who experienced the normal stuff, like the rebellion. I wasn't rebellious. So to me, I thought, what is this? This is terrible. I hate the world, or I'm doing it wrong, or I got to fix this, or all of those things. And I think that with that being said, I didn't go through your regular teen things. I was born in this 1960. I was a teenager in the 70s. I had a very, God bless him, he grew, but my dad was chauvinistic. He was your typical Italian. You're the daughter. I say, you do. So there was that being under that is like to step out or be rebellious, or I didn't even think that was an option. So I'm not really sure. Mine came later, like college later. And I think I started to understand later, well, that's kind of the normal thing.
Yeah.
Teenagers are supposed to try to break away from you in their crazy ways, right? And so I think and you were the oldest.
Yeah.
So for you, the sense of,
you guys, I would
your
walk
oldest
out
is your guinea pig. Sorry. It's like it's the one you're like, we'll see. I'll try better with the next one.
But look, I think you did pretty good.
I think I did very good.
You did very good, Mom. You did very good. I like how you say we're trained to feel certain emotions like guilt. Time for me to throw it in the trash.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chuck it in the
Yeah.
bucket, as Mel says.
Yeah.
Put it in there.
And any moms, again, I don't have sons, so when I speak of this, I'm just speaking specifically of daughters, but I'm sure this will work with your sons too. As parents, I think if you're taking care of yourself, because you can say to your children, I want you to take care of yourself. I want you to live your dreams. I want you to do this. But if you're saying it to them and they're not seeing you do it, it's kind of, well, wait a minute. Mom's saying it, but she's not doing it. So it's healthy for your children to see you take time for yourself, take care of yourself. Have real conversations with them about that too. Like, hey, this is something mommy really wants to do. It makes me happy. I think I can help people. They kind of learn from that. I think that's what I would recommend.
Well, then we're going to tell Anaya and Maddie that mommy wants to press the button tonight. I'm joking. Give me the look. But you gave me the look. I love it. You guys, has this been good? Is she not incredible?
Can I say one more thing too?
Hell yeah.
Can I just ask, because I feel like, moms with kids, sometimes with schools, with so many things happening, it's hard to be on the other side of a school. Maybe your kids are struggling academically or otherwise. I just want to let you know that there are a lot of people who, if you just ask, would be more than happy to help you navigate through some of the crazy stuff in getting through academically or educational now too, because that's hard on families. So, if that's something that I could ever just offer, you just let Marina know. You're welcome to call me and I can just fill you in.
I will link her Facebook because she
Yes.
doesn't have Instagram.
No.
She has a TikTok.
I tried to have Instagram. It kept doing something weird. I love TikTok. Okay, I have to tell you. When I was hearing they're like, oh, the Chinese, we got to take it away. I'm like, do not take TikTok away. First of all, with the whole COVID thing, during the lockdowns and stuff, TikTok is the best thing since sliced bread. It's the best thing since. You know what? It's like, it's just, it's
You
things
send
that
me
make
some
you
funny
laugh.
shit. You send me
I
funny
have,
shit.
it's just, I think, I do send some funny
You
stuff.
really do.
I'm that person who should be doing something else, and instead she's sending
like her
TikToks,
podcast and her book
all over. Yeah, because I get sometimes easily distracted. But so yeah, I have TikTok. I do have TikTok.
It's okay. Facebook. But most of them are on Facebook anyway. So that's
But
good news. I'll link her Facebook so you guys can go and ask her any educational questions. Don't ask her crazy questions.
Yeah, and just so I ask you real quickly, I want to mention, again, as moms, give yourself a break. Balance is a goal. That's all.
Yeah,
I haven't achieved it yet.
I say balance is bullshit. I always say that. It really
I haven't
is.
achieved balance yet.
No.
Hence, spending a few hours on TikTok, sending them. I grew up without the internet and unplugged, and I have to tell you, I learned a lot about myself.
What did you learn?
I learned that I could do it for a few days. And I'm back on.
Well, we have this amazing event going on, so you could have just came over here.
I could have come over.
You could have stayed in the guest bedroom upstairs, and Romeo could have cuddled with you.
Yeah, that would not have been fun.
This is like my house at Thanksgiving. This is every other, like the Sundays we get together. And listen, my two sisters, I shared with them. They are married. They have children. They are good, and so
they have careers.
They have careers. Like, just so if you are that parent or that grandmother, right, and you have those they're struggling, like there's somebody struggling, like just know that on the other side, right, with the right tools and resources,
and with an advocate. It's something that it's hard because you feel like, oh, I should just be able to love them through it. And this love, unfortunately, is not enough. But if you learn to be an advocate for them and do as much research as you can, then you can help them through it. And if you are that person who's struggling, know that whatever feels bad today can change it tomorrow. So something to think about. Yeah.